This is the Rest of Everest video podcast, an almost unabridged expedition experience.
Well, hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Rest of Everest bonus episode. This is going to be part one in a multi-part series of pictures from China from an expedition that Ben Clark took, this fall. So on the phone with me right now is Ben Clark out in Telluride, Colorado. How you doing, Ben?
Good, John. What's up, y'all?
These bonus episodes have been a long time coming. I'm sorry it's taken so long to get them out, but there just is only so much time in the day. So I apologize. I'm a little bit sick right now. I have a slight case of laryngitis, so I'll try to keep quiet and let Ben do most of the talking here. But yeah, so Ben, this slideshow is from your trip back in, you were gone just about the entire month of November, right?
October, full month October 2006, just this last fall.
Wow, it was that long ago. It seems like it was only last month that you were gone for me, but that was a long time ago now. All right.
I know, man. Good.
Well, I know people are really interested to see the pictures, so let's head up into the far eastern Himalayas. Let's go.
So adventure, I believe, is the key to going to the mountains. And for a while now, I've been going out to different places and kind of looking around, seeing different peaks and different forms that have really captivated my imagination. And sometimes they were attached to other peaks I was climbing, like this one. This was my first 8,000 meter peak. It's called Dhaulagiri. That was a pretty good time, Mountain of Storms. And then this shot, which was taken when I climbed Mount Everest back in 2003. But I kept looking around, and it was shots like these that started to really compel me to feel like there were other ways I could experience mountains without going up the sort of the commercial routes or without repeating what other people had done, but instead just sort of finding like a unique, new, and very playful and fun way to experience the mountains. So I came back from Everest back then in '03, and now 4 years later, I've mostly been out climbing fun stuff, having a good time, you know, being in the mountains, being an alpinist, and covering all types of ground, climbing every kind of route that I could really imagine, and just having a great time, ice, rock, and then skiing a bunch. Really enjoy sliding downhill now, too. I really wish I could have brought some to China, but this was the treat when I got back, continuing that intimacy with the mountains. And so adventure clearly is what defines my whole purpose for things like this slideshow you're about to see, which was a real, I would say this was the outcome of years of going and checking out places I'd just been drawn to, and now just my eye follows a certain path, and I just head that way. So because of this, luckily several different companies are helping me out. Osprey Backpacks gave quite a bit of financial support to this expedition, as well as provide me with the awesome backpack, the Exposure 66, which is the pack that I take on everything now. It's perfect. Mountain Hardware gave me some great gear, some jackets. Exposure gave me a GTX 2.5 and some pants and a down jacket that were pretty sweet. And thank you to Boot Doctors for giving me a little bit of time off, because this was a 30-day trip. And I do have to hold a job. I'm not a trustee. I try my best to work for a living and try and get some time off. So this is Josh over there on the right. Josh is a man who cleans up well and is not to be underestimated. And we had just flown for basically like 3 days. We've been from Montrose, which is just outside of Telluride, to Chicago for a night, and then off to Beijing, and then off to Sanford, where we go, Chengdu. So we ended up way in the deeper regions of Western China. And we arrived there mostly by luck. And this summer, when Josh asked me if I would come and work for his guide service, we climbed together only a couple of times, and then this was our first chance to really, both of us who are pros, just get out and just go and have a fine time in the mountains. So this is where we arrived, halfway across the world. This is Chengdu, China, an incredible place, very, very modern, but also pretty polluted. I mean, it's a lot of construction. It seems like the Chinese have really, really got a lot of infrastructure getting built, and it just kind of creates a little bit of confusion as a Western tourist just trying to get around. We didn't speak any Mandarin, and we learned a few words, but basically we were just trying to check out the culture for a day or so before we had to start on our way to a place called Rilong.
Can you explain for a second, Ben, just where in China this all is? Like, in terms of the country itself?
Yeah, this is Western China. And Tibet, which is on the border, which is where Everest was. Everest is right on the border of Nepal and Tibet. And we were on the border of Tibet, so just east of Nepal, and this would be northeast of India and into sort of the western reaches of China in a place called the Sichuan province. And it kind of blends a little bit of that old world with, you can see in this photo, a rickshaw, like you might find in Nepal or Tibet. And then, you might find other sort of older artifacts and older history here. Even though you see all those modern buildings, this place has been around since the 8th century. And a fellow named Du Fu, who was a famous Chinese literary figure, had come out to this region long before anyone else was and kind of settled it as if it were sort of the Denver of China. And we went and we checked out this guy's place because I had a few friends who were into kind of Eastern philosophy and Eastern poetry recommend that I go visit Du Fu's cottage. And that was a pretty cool place. It was full of a lot of, old Chinese architecture and really unique and cool details. This is a giant pagoda, and some of the details of like a dragon and then the circles playing a big theme, and a lot of their architecture was really cool, mostly because it reminded me of stuff that I would see in Nepal, but it was a little more ornate and had sort of a very developed feel. And this was a bronze statue for Du Fu, and kind of his whole deal, not to get too far off the subject of this being a climbing trip, was that he was sort of this philosopher who spoke of the times that were happening in China long before it became sort of the rising and emerging world power that it is now. And it was very wild, very rugged, and extremely difficult place. There's a lot of surviving going on. So you can always look into that on your own. But we booked out of the city and started to head down more familiar type terrain. We took public transportation. Sort of the goal of this trip was that Josh and I would have a great time surviving by our wits. And I enjoy that about coming into a culture and not taking a very high road and not spending too much on the travel there, because I have to go out and I can't. Got to raise the funds myself for these things. So it's fun to go this way as if we were just a local. And we got to see really interesting parts of China that were being developed, and it was kind of a very humid place. I mean, kind of a tropical, lush place that got a lot of moisture. And we ended up finding ourselves in this area, which was a pretty interesting little thing that happened. Josh and I had bought a bus ticket, which is on the left, and then we had a piece of paper that said, we want to go to Rilong in Chinese characters. And so we got dropped off at that street corner with these two things that we basically ended up in that town, which is called Sichuan, and we were trying to get to a town called Rilong. And so, as you can see, you got like a policeman, you got an army guy, and then you got Josh. And neither one of those guys could speak any English, and we got 4 bags. So I had to kind of charm my way into finding a vehicle that we could get into and ride what I thought was going to be probably like a 2 to 3 hour cruise, like a nice little bit of travel through the mountains over to this town called Rilong. And what it turned out to be was an epic adventure along a crazy road that began 200 feet outside of Zinshu. When we started down the road, we were in a Yugo, a tiny little Yugo with 4 duffel bags, a driver, Josh, and myself. And duffel bags weighed about 50 pounds each because we took a ton of gear, not knowing what we would get into and what conditions would be like. There's not a lot of information out there to really dial you in on this area. It's remote and not really a place that people know a whole lot about. And so right out of the gate, boom, we got held up by these guys who I think had some sort of vendetta against our driver. And an hour and a half later, we finally left what turned out to be a pretty weird exchange between the driver of our vehicle, the drivers of another vehicle, and all they wanted was our money. So we just gave them 100 yuan, which is equivalent to, I don't know, I guess about $14 or something like that. And they gave us back 40, and so $8, and an hour and a half later, we were down the road, and we both thought we were about to get totally jacked. So yeah, we finally got in that vehicle and drove towards this place, which is Rilong. And as evening started to set, we ended up pushing that Yugo over a 4,000 meter, about 12, 13,000 foot high pass in a blizzard until it finally stopped, and then our driver threw some nice little ropes on the front to create chains. And finally, we arrived in Rilong that night about 10 o'clock. And so Rilong really became a twist and a wrinkle in our time. This
is one of my favorite photographs.
Yeah, it's a totally bizarre place. There's not a real effort to speak a lot of English there. And that's okay. It's China. I don't expect it. But I don't know, sort of things get lost in translation there that you can't understand. And I use this photo, for instance, because I have no idea what a Mountain Germ King's Girly restaurant is. It doesn't make any sense.
Really?
And they serve food there, and they had a dance party there, yeah. They had a big dance party when we'd come back to town from climbing, but we just said to hell with it. We were done with that place.
Did you get to meet the Germ King?
No, and nor the girly. Well, we did meet a few girlies, but no, we didn't go dancing with the Germ King.
Okay.
But I don't know. You know, this is what's so bizarre about Rilong. Yeah, okay, people slaughter goats. That happens. And they do that, and you probably eat that goat later on. But typically they're not they don't look like it just came off a golf course. And so that was kind of weird. I haven't seen too much of that around the world. It's usually one or the other. And then you go into a grocery store or these little side sort of boxy buildings that had food and water and mostly green tea everywhere, and they also had all these mushrooms for sale. Apparently it's such a lush environment that tons of mushrooms grow, and so they keep those stored up. And then this is a look at Rilong. It's kind of this, I don't know if you know anything about architecture, it looks like a Richard Myron type design, just a bunch of gridded white buildings that just sort of occupy the landscape, sit there, and there's just a road that goes right through it, as you can see toward, I guess, sort of the middle of the screen. And we had ourselves a pretty interesting time once we started to figure out how to get from Rilong over to this mountain. That was our goal, was to go in there and to attempt this mountain, which is called Mount Skuniong. And Mount Skuniong has been climbed at least 4 times now, but no one has climbed sort of the central south face. And we thought that it was possible to establish a route that would be direct from the valley up through that red line and up to the summit. So that was our plan. But once we got to Rilong, we found out that there were a few other items that had to be present before we could walk in that valley. And so we met a guy named Galway from the Sichuan Mountaineering Association, who was referred to us by a friend of ours who we met, who I guess we didn't know we were under radar, and that's kind of what happens is in countries like this. There's often not a lot of communication towards foreign visitors, especially climbers. We're not really a heavy market for people. And so we got over there and found out, because we weren't going to use this guy's horses, because we thought we could validly walk through any valley on our own power, and I guess we were the first people to think we could do that in that way, as far as we were going. And so Gal comes in, he's like, yeah, I got to charge you guys $700 to go climb that mountain you want to climb. And you can just come on back to Chengdu with me, and we'll just get that money, and then, bam, you can go climb that mountain all you want. And we looked at him and we were like, you got to be crazy, man. We paid $1,800 for plane ticket. I mean, I had $700 to my name total for this expedition. And I surely wasn't going to spend it on a permit for one peak when I had, a month that I was going to be over there. So we got him some smokes and a couple of Heinekens, and ended up walking out of there with a letter of endorsement that allowed us to not climb the mountain we wanted to, but to, what was expressed to us was to be able to climb up to 5,000 meters on it, or go and explore other peaks that were around 5,000 meters. So $60, some smokes, and a couple of Heinies, and we started our way into the valley finally.
So basically he gave you permission to get up to 5,000 meters anywhere you wanted to, but no higher.
Yeah. And they couldn't in any way track us. I mean, we were like, yeah, we're going in on the 10th or 11th, and we'll be coming out around the 28th. And so, we started in there, and it's a place that gets some tourists. I mean, obviously that town wasn't like the smallest thing. It wasn't as quaint as some of the places I've seen in Tibet or Nepal. But the Chinese have done some effort. I mean, they've created some efforts to control this place so it doesn't get destroyed, and part of that was building a boardwalk for a couple of miles back that then kind of terminates. After that, you find some really disgusting muddy trail that is this is created by all the horses that go back there. So tourists kind of come into the mouth of the valley, look around on a horse, and then they leave. And typically you could use a horse and go all the way back through this valley, but we are just, we didn't think we needed all that extra stuff. And so we just put on our big, thick plastic climbing boots and began the longest walk into a pretty foreign and wild valley that you can imagine. And it just kind of finally petered into this really beautiful place. It was just really adventurous. And so we'd kind of come in and we had our sights set on exploring this one particular hanging valley that was up and out of the one we were in. And excuse my absence of maps, but they were only available to the Chinese army. So we're just basically winging it the whole time at this point. So we built up a nice little camp that night after walking pretty much all day with packs full of gear and in plastic boots. And we bought this really cool teapot for like 22 yuan, which is like nothing. It's like $3. And it was the best teapot I think I've ever had. We used it for the whole expedition. And we could not find any place that had a fork and a knife that we could buy. Mostly you ate with chopsticks the whole time. There was no fork and knife. And so that's me eating with a piton, which is what we use as rock protection. That's a particularly nice one called a knife blade. And that one allowed me to eat my noodles out of the teapot. So, took our plastic boots off. This is what we were walking in the whole time, kind of a really high-tech and warm and very versatile boot made by La Sportiva called a Spantic. That thing was killer in mud. And so we weren't actually aching and paining about having those things. And so we bedded down for the night, woke up the next morning, and our objective is the high peak and sort of the center of the upper portion of the screen. It's called Celestial Peak. We thought that we could walk up there and look at this North Ridge. But what we didn't know was really the time. We didn't know what conditions would be like, whether it would be snow, ice, rock, whatever, and what that face even looked like, because there weren't any photos of it. So we picked our way through what is obviously a very cliffed out hillside and sort of bushwhacked for a long time. And this is fun for us. I mean, there's no trails or anything, so you just kind of do your best and look around and see where you end up without any idea where you might be. And sometimes it's thin, sometimes it's thick. This is Josh rolling through there in a little bit of thicket. And then finally we found the only flat spot in the entire upper portion of that valley. So we were now about, I don't know, like 20, maybe 2,000, 2,500 feet out of the valley. And we set up another camp. You can see how some of these peaks are very dramatic and rise out of the background. And we looked at the north ridge and north face of our objective, which was Celestial Peak. And it had just come off the storm cycle, so we expected there would probably be some snow on the face, but in these types of conditions, it's really poor climbing. It's basically a sort of a powder snow that's very light and fluffy, stuck to granite, and what it does is it keeps it from being very protectable and very climbable because all the cracks and features are choked and full of that granite, or full of snow in that granite.
Well, that actually is a pretty dramatic shot. Let's actually stop on that shot for this episode. I want to split these up so they're not outrageously large download files. And so let's stop here. And next episode we will resume the climb here with you, Ben, and give us a little bit of a tease about what's going to be coming up. What kind of things are we going to be seeing?
Well, you'll see what we did. That peak had been climbed before, but there were a couple around there that had some summits no one had seen yet, and I think you might get to get a little sneak peek at a view off one of those. So if you're interested in that, seeing the view from the top of the mountain that's never been climbed before, we got it.
All right. So we'll be releasing that in the next few days, and I'll give everyone a heads up on the podcast. And so just keep checking your podcatchers. Keep checking to see if we have any new episodes. This next week or so, we'll have quite a few more than the one every week. So thanks a lot, Ben, for this trek into the valley here. I look forward to seeing what else you have to show. All right.
Psyched to get people watching a little bit of adventure again.
Oh, one thing I do want to mention before we do leave this episode, that I'm going to guess that all of these photographs are for sale.
Yeah, if there's any that you're really interested in, shoot an email, and you can contact us at therestofeverest.com. And yeah, if there's anything that is interesting to anyone, certainly be willing to work something out.
Yeah, because this is all part of the deal, everyone, where if Ben can generate revenue on these trips, then he can go on more trips in the future. So let's help him out any way we can, and let's get some more incredible content here. This is great stuff. So thanks so much, Ben, and we'll see you soon.
All right, y'all have a great night.
As always, our announcer is Marlon May, and our music is provided by Wendy Wu. Check her out at wendywu.com. Thanks so much, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you for watching The Rest of Everest. For more information on the expedition, please visit therestofeverest.com.